This is a pretty huge update for Sins of a Solar Empire 2. It's called Paths to Power, and it introduces a few new ways of actually playing the game, and these come in the form of scenarios, or I guess you could also call them challenges. In total, there are 10 of these. Many of them take quite a long time, so there's many hours of gameplay here. They're each very different to the other. For example, you may find yourself in a situation where you're in a deep war of attrition, an enemy trying to grind you down over a long period of time. Likewise, you may be doing that yourself to the enemy. Alternatively, you may find your homeworld under siege, laying there hoping to have the best defences as multiple enemies come in wave after wave. Here, there's no opportunity of success. Your only option is to survive as long as you can. So Paths to Power has just released. This video, by the way, is sponsored by Stardock, so my thanks to them for that. Please do check out the links in the video description where you can find out everything you need to know, both about the game as a whole as well as this specific update. So on the screen you can see a selection of these scenarios. There are 10 of them, and each of them does have an increasing number of maximum players. So yeah, at the top, defend the home world. It'll be just you versus one enemy, and as you work your way down, you'll find you'll have an ever increasing number of enemies, and ultimately do bring with them their own set of challenges and own set of problems. For example, right here we've got the Uprising scenario. It says that disagreements between the tech factions have reached a boiling point, and there's now open war. As a tech enclave, you must leave your defences to remove the tech primacy threat. So in a way, I guess we could consider this somewhat of a civil war. It says max players is 7. There's 167 different planets here. Resources are all set to normal to 3 stars. The design is custom of this particular environment, and yeah, there's a few minor factions here as well. Now, what's interesting is that for the most part, you can't really adjust this scenario all that much, and that's what keeps it particularly interesting. We've got some more here. This one is called Treasure Hunt. The Visari Exodus has recently won a major battle in a nearby star system, leaving them flush with resources. They've just arrived in our system and hope to harvest everything for their needs. We must stop them. We're going to take a look at the first scenario here then, very briefly. It's called Defend the Homeworld. Now, I'm not going to play all the way through this. I just want to give you a taster of how these scenarios work and how this one plays out in its very early parts. We'll then move on and have a look at another scenario. The idea here is for me to give you a bit of a feel as to how this particular new update, Path to Power, is going to function. So yeah, I'm not going to play an entire scenario through because these are very long, but it should give you an indication that yes, there's a huge amount of playtime across all of these different scenarios. Defend the homeworld then. It says you are Pranas United, I think that's the correct pronunciation there, and are beset on all the sides by enemy forces who want to steal your starbase technology. Defeat is certain, but how long can you last? So the goal here is not to win the mission, it is to simply try and survive as long as you can. You can see there are 3 enemy factions here. They're all set to impossible AI, so yeah, not giving me a lot of hope there. You can change a few things here, such as orbiting planet lines as well as a fleet supply multiplier, which allows you to have a higher number of ships, as the enemy will also have a higher number of ships if you so want, although that does have some system impact performance. Yeah, it might slow down your system unless you've got a particularly powerful PC. As soon as we're in this mission then, we get that same text, but a little bit different actually. Pit yourself against the universe as the proud Pranas United, creators of the traitor starbase technology. You'll be relentlessly assaulted from all sides by enemies until your homeworld falls. Victory is not an option. It's simply a matter of how long you can survive. So you can see right here, we do start off with quite a lot of resources. We got 15,000 credits, 4,500 metal, and 3,000 crystals. Not only that, our system, well, this is our homeworld here, it's pretty heavily set up and very well fortified already. Got a lot of defensive cannons here, defensive platforms. We got some military construction outposts and quite a few ships as well, all dotted around. So we're going to need to set up some command keys there, some fleets, so we can actually use these and get quick access to them when the time arrives. You can also see as we zoom out that our faction has a lot of worlds under its control, so we've got a massive amount of incoming resources here. But the question really is, how are we going to defend all of this? Are we going to try and defend as many planets as possible? Should we try and defend just a few core select worlds, or should I simply focus on the homeworld? I've not got a lot of experience with this type of scenario within Sins of a Solar Empire 2, so for now I'm just going to go with trying to defend the homeworld as much as possible. I'm not sure that is the correct option, but I guess one of the joys of this particular scenario is there's multiple ways of trying it out, and it's going to be a case of hit and miss, just learning and experimenting to find what works for you. And yes, those of you who are pretty observant, you will have already noticed that my credits have dropped pretty massively. That's because I just put, cut here, but there's a load of ships already under constructions in the queue here. Just take a look at that. Also some research to go along with those, that's in the queue. Now, talking of research, as you can see up the top left-hand corner of the screen, and we'll open up the research screen, you can see a huge chunk of research has already been completed. This is the starting state when you begin at this particular scenario, and that's pretty interesting because, as with the fact you have got a load of ships here, a load of bases, you can also start with various different amounts of research. This will be different from scenario to scenario, and we're going to keep building these ships here meanwhile, because sooner or later it looks like we're going to get a massive invasion of other ships, likely coming from all different directions. Now, what I am going to do is stay in this planetary body and just defend the homeworld. Basically, I'll let the other worlds fall and use them as a time gate, allowing me to build more fleets, a larger fleet around this particular planet. We'll see how that goes. Not imagine it's going to go particularly well, but at least it will give me an indication of how this mission plays out and better allow me to better prepare in future. Also, thanks to the sheer abundance of resources that we start with in this particular scenario, it means we can very quickly start producing capital ships, not only other ships from the fleet, but we can also get some of these larger vessels out there. And yes, likely we're going to need quite a few of these. Beautiful looking environment. Look at that lovely nebula in the background. Gorgeous stuff. Okay, so a slight cut here just to skip ahead some way. You can see it's not too long, just 6 minutes into the play session, the timer at the top right hand side of the screen, before we started getting the first invasion. This was one of the stellar bodies towards the edge of our empire. Not too heavy invasion just yet, but I'm sure this is going to escalate over time. Now, the combat here does look really nice, again thanks to the sheer abundance of ships in our fleet. This isn't the main line, this isn't the homeworld, this is basically the front line of defense. Got a larger ship jumping in there as well from the enemy, and don't know what it's doing there. Is that about to explode? Don't look like it's doing too well, does it? Perhaps it's gone broadside to use some of its weapons, and some more coming in as well by the looks of it. Just look at that. So sooner or later these are going to just keep coming until they've pretty much destroyed everything I've got here. I know that's going to happen. I'm not trying to hold out here. I'm not going to keep adding ships here. Instead, we'll build up the defences around the homeworld. I love watching these. This is when Sins of a Solar Empire 2 does get really interesting, just sitting here and watching out how these battles play out. Of course, you can take on a bit of a hands-on approach and try and guide some of the fleets here, try and use a few different tactics. Some of the vessels have also got some special options, some special abilities that you can employ, specifically if you've got capital ships there, but I'm not going to worry about that too much here. Like I say, it really comes down to how you want to play these sessions. So jumping back to the homeworld, we're building up our fleet a little bit here. I suspect we're still probably going to be a bit too light on the defences when the enemy ultimately arrives here, but they are still a fair ways off. They're, the front lines are kind of holding them back, holding back the tide at the moment. And you can see that's all unfolding to the top end side of the map there. Quite a huge, overwhelming force now. A load more coming in. Not doing too well, am I, over there? We'll see how it goes. Now, likely what's going to happen is towards the other edges of the map, we're going to get other factions, other empires making their way in, and they're also going to cause some problem. Ultimately, we're going to end up with complete chaos at the centre of our empire. Let's just have a look what's going on here. They're holding out pretty well, aren't they? Not too bad, not too shabby. So like I said, I didn't want to do a full playthrough of this particular session, at least not in video form, but I do want to show you how it kind of plays out. So eventually they do make it towards your homeworld, and it looks like we've got one of the larger ships here. Is that a Titan? I think it is. And despite my empire, my fleet, trying their best to protect the homeworld, it's just all really started to fall apart here. We're just facing sheer overwhelming odds. As the scenario says at the start of the video here, the start of the campaign, the goal here is not to survive, that's impossible, it's simply to survive as long as possible. And this is something where a lot of people are likely going to be comparing their times just to see who lasts the longest. And the pressure just continues to ramp up. On the homeworld there, at the centre, we've got the big orange faction, and off to the sides we've got the yellow faction coming in, as well as the blue faction over on the right. An absolute ton of ships coming in there. All of these are going to converge on the homeworld, so eventually, if I'm not dead by then, we'll have all three factions completely trying to annihilate my homeworld. And you can see that, yes, over time that's exactly what happens. Right now we've got two factions in my home system, and, well, pretty much all my defences are now completely annihilated. Over the back there, you can see the third faction moving in en masse. They're going to be here not too much longer, but I think we're probably going to be completely defeated by then. The health of our planet is getting pretty low. Just look at all that orbital bombardment going on. Pretty much everyone else just sitting around and chilling out because they've more or less annihilated everyone, all threats. They just need to wait until they've conquered the homeworld. Not looking good for those living on that planet, is it? Bless them. Nearly there, and there we go. That's it. Defeat. It was inevitable. Now, if you're interested in a scenario that is somewhat more traditional, we have this one right here. So this one is called Clash of the Titans, and to be perfectly honest here, it's not exactly traditional, but it is a bit more of an extensive fight. So, hoping to re-establish their dynasty, the Aluxian Resurgence has invested all of its considerable resources into military expansion. They have fortified their position in this system and are now looking to conquer neighbouring systems. They are now too powerful to ignore, so remove them permanently. So the goal here is to make our way towards the enemy homeworld and then colonize it and hold it for a total of 5 minutes. To do this, we can also build up to 3 Titans if we so wish. There's also, 6 players here, so quite a big map. So, as you can see, we start off with a fair amount of resources here. 4,500 credits, 1,000 metal and 750 crystals. To add to that, we've also got our very own fully constructed Titan that's ready to go. And this ship is specifically interesting, especially interesting because even if the homeworld falls, even if we've got no other worlds that are colonized, we can still continue the fight because this Titan acts as a central focus for our entire colony, or perhaps a backup for our colony. Either way, we can continue even if we lose our homeworld. So I actually was enjoying this particular scenario a lot more than I was expecting, so stuck with it for a bit longer than the initial look. And as you can see, we do have some other factions here that are populating this particular cluster of planets. There's a load of them out there actually, and I've slowly managed to expand my own empire as well. Nothing too significant, but this is a good foundation. This is a good starting ground for our eventual, well, it's a good staging ground actually, for our eventual expansion towards the enemy homeworld. So this one has been pretty nicely paced so far. The Defend the Homeworld one was very fast going, very rapid action, and you needed to prepare as fast as you can. This one has a bit more of a leisurely pace to it, where we can, well, somewhat slowly build up and prepare. Although, if you take too long, you're likely going to face some troubles, as inevitably you're going to get invaded by some enemy ships. And that's exactly what happened to me here. This is my frontline colony, right at the front end of my empire, and yeah, an enemy Titan has dropped in, and they're causing some pretty significant troubles. Again, absolutely love just watching these battles unfold. Huge explosion there, and that Titan is just soaking up the damage. Look at his weapons firing from the front there. Stunning looking stuff, it really is. Now, to ensure I didn't lose access to that colony, I thought, one, I would continue to build ships elsewhere in my empire, and 2, I would send my own Titan out to face down the enemy Titan. And fortunately, my defences here had already done some damage to the enemy Titan, so with my one here as well, it was hopefully going to, well, make the going good, take down that enemy. First though, we needed to destroy that other capital ship. You can see that's just on its way. Eventually the enemy capital ship tries to run, but they left it far too late, and I now was able to turn my full attention to the enemy Titan. This was a bit of a protracted fight, but in the end I was able to take down that Titan. So yeah, my colony has lived to survive another day. So as you can see then, Paths to Power does have a wide variety of different options for you if you're interested in trying out some new scenarios, and these really do add a nice new face to Sins of the Solar Empire 2. My thanks again to Stardock for sponsoring this video. Do check out that link in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time. Do take care.